Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Stroke Buddies Tuesday Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. I'm always happy when I manage to get that out without flubbing it. And today, we're really lucky to have Katherine Reyes with us. She is an occupational therapist, and she has a special interest in stroke, and she has sought out various types of neuro training and certification, which definitely speaks to me because you know how I feel about neuro these days and the way the brain works. And I think it's interesting how she got there, and I'm just going to take 1 minute to talk about that because she's essentially the fourth person I know of that was influenced in terms of her career decision by things that happened in her life. And that is that her stepfather, her uncle, and her grandfather all had strokes. So she grew up, seeing some of the challenges that we all face and decided maybe that she could help other people out there um, by becoming an occupational therapist with an interest in stroke and neuro. And I find this really interesting because we've had three other guests. Shauna Young, whose mom suffered a TBI, and she grew up helping her with her hand and walking, and Dr. Carolyn Faulkner, who younger sister was born with a cleft palate, and so she helped her with her speech and ultimately became a speech and language pathologist. And then Shannon Cobb, who had a personal experience with physical therapy and ended up becoming a physical therapist. So I find this just as interesting as talking to people like Dr. Hetzler, who is a neuroscientist who had a stroke, because he understands both sides. So without further ado, Catherine's going to talk to us some today about, believe it or not, non-movement strategies, even though most of the time occupational therapists and physical therapists talk to us about movement strategies. But there are a lot of things. Stroke recovery is more than a list of exercises, and we often don't ignore, but don't give enough credit to, or enough emphasis, I should say, on the mental aspect and some of the non-movement things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Katherine, go ahead and
Thank
take it
you.
away.
Thank you, Ro. All right, good morning, everybody again. So before I jump into the non-movement strategies, so I know everybody's already familiar with occupational therapy, but like Ralph said earlier, usually occupational therapists and physical therapists prescribe movement. We don't really do a lot of non-movement education to our clients. Like for occupational therapists, usually we kind of see the person as holistic being from your intrinsic and your external factors. Intrinsic would be your motivation, your pain, your mental health, and then your external factors would be your family, your work, your environment, how the weather is around you, and how you can access services for you to get better. Occupational therapists do a lot of activity analysis, and we systematically use a lot of activities for you to be able to really regain the roles that are meaningful to you. um, for me, usually when I'm asked what occupational therapy is, OT is very difficult to have an actual definition of, really, since OT really encompasses a lot of areas. That is why it's both surprising and confusing to a lot of our clients that when we do things similar to our physical therapy and speech and language pathology counterparts. But I want to emphasize similar being the operative word with how we see our clients. Um, for occupational therapy as well, we try to address the person from wellness to illness recovery. Again, one more thing that I would like to emphasize is that it costs to receive therapy. And especially with insurances, they only give you a limited amount, and they have a certain, they have certain qualifications that you have to meet for them to cover your therapy services. So even if you know you would still have gains, but they discharge you, this is where your therapy homework comes in. This is where you have to really understand that therapy is around you. So I know a lot of the speakers, a lot of the people post movement strategies. So I'm just going to jump right in with the non-movement strategies. And first thing that I really like to emphasize with my clients is sleep. Like number one, sleep. Um, it is, if we have good sleep, it relieves our mental fatigue, it improves our memory, it regulates our metabolism. It really plays a key role in tissue regeneration, especially for those who had a brain injury, and of course, immune regulation. It helps with, I don't know if you've heard about offline motor learning. I don't know if anybody has discussed about that before, or you've read about it in some of your studies, but offline, yes, Dr. Helzer. Anybody want to jump in with offline
Yeah.
motor learning?
No, I don't know much about it. If you give us the elevator pitch version of it, that would be great.
Okay, so offline motor learning is when your brain just synthesizes all the learning that you did with that day without you actually doing anything. And that's what sleep does. Um,
Okay.
it's, yep, we, again, like what we're going to talk about for today is that you don't always have to move 24 hours a day for you to be able to learn something, for your brain to get better. It's not always 24 hours movement. Um, and then, okay, so a lot of stroke survivors are often left undiagnosed with sleep disorders. Studies have shown that approximately 50% of stroke survivors have a sleep problem. Usually. Um, and then, so we kind of define, which we usually see two problems that will be your insomnia and hypersomnia that are common even with stroke survivors and just regular people. We usually define insomnia as more than 30 minutes and over 3 weeks, 3 times per week of awakening complaints. Hypersomnia is excessive daytime sleepiness. For hypersomnia related to your stroke, usually it should resolve within a few months. That's how we usually differentiate like excessive sleeping from post-stroke fatigue that we're going to try to talk about later as well. A lot of studies that I've really came across have noted that usually oversleeping doesn't really help as much with your brain recovery. 7 to 8 hours or 7 to 9 hours would be fine. Usually, if you notice that you've been sleeping for more than 9 hours, it's a pretty good predictor that something is wrong with your body. And it's something that you have to really consult your doctor with because you're oversleeping. Naps are okay. It helps the brain relax and have more focus for the rest of the day. Um, if you try to keep your napping between 20 and 30 minutes, and then somewhere between 12 and 3 p.m., that would be the optimal time for you to really take a break. Anytime closer to bedtime would affect your quality of sleep at night already. You have any questions about sleep for right now before I kind of move on?
Um, this is kind of a dicey subject because a lot of people
It is.
have neuro
It is.
fatigue, and
Yep, it
and
is. It is.
you know,
It
so
is.
in the groups, what I see is somebody goes, "I'm tired all the time. Is this normal?" I mean, we see that post all the time. You've been around the community long enough that I'm sure you've seen it, and you know, people jump in and they say, "Sleep all you want. It's your brain healing." And I'm not sure I agree with that. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm also somebody who didn't take a nap ever.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
actually, what I did was I laid down I would do physical therapy about 15 minutes, and I'd lay down like King Tut and not go to sleep. Just let my brain rest for 10 minutes because I heard that
Yep.
connections continue to happen after you
Yep.
stop exercising. So
Yep. Yep.
I gave and I managed to push through neuro fatigue also, but mainly by being a maniac, and you can't expect people to do that. Also, don't know, you know, my stroke was no fun, but I see people out there that I think might have had a worse one than I did. So you have to always factor that in.
Yeah,
So it's,
exactly.
you know, any insight you could put
Yeah.
into like how much sleep and what to do about napping. I think you already said naps shouldn't be. I
More
mean,
than 30 minutes
more
now.
than 30 minutes. I mean, I see people out there who say they nap. They don't sleep at night. This is another one. I think that maybe naps could be working against this whole cycle. And that is, I see some people say I get very little or poor sleep at night, and I have to take 2 or 3 2-hour naps all day long because
That's gonna
I'm
be too
wiped out.
much.
Well, of
Yeah.
course you're wiped out. You're not sleeping 8 hours at night.
Mm-hmm.
Anything
Yep.
you can say about that would be helpful.
Could
And
I
Yep. So
comment a
Dr.
yes,
Hessler,
yes,
bit?
yes, Dr. Hetzel.
Yes, couple of things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but sleep is especially important in the first year after a stroke, because that's when the brain is really, especially trying to, of course, it's always trying to recover, but that's when
Mm-hmm.
mainly trying to recover. A
Mm-hmm.
second thing, of course, there are different stages of sleep,
Yes.
and
Yes. Yes. Yes.
the two, I suppose, most important stages in this regard are what we call rapid eye movement sleep or
Mm-hmm.
breathing sleep,
REM.
and then slow wave sleep. Now, normally, in someone that's not had a stroke, your brain tends to remember things during REM sleep, during rapid
Yes.
eye movement sleep. That's when your brain tends to synthesize things and put
Mm-hmm.
them together to form memories. While slow wave sleep is especially important for cleaning out the brain, all the debris that builds up over the course of the day.
Yep,
So
I agree with that, doctor.
normally both of those stages are very important in your normal daily activities.
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm not sure, there might be research on it, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure which would be most important in terms of brain recovery following a stroke. I would suspect both would be, but I don't know.
Yeah. If you guys want after today, I can send Ralph the resources I have for the presentation, so you guys can go through it.
Well, that would be
So
nice.
I do have a lot of journals and folders right now. I can send it so you can read through it.
well, and I can do two things with it. I can post it in the group, or you're free to post it in the group as a follow-up. And
Okay.
um, YouTube gives you about 5,000 characters in the description, so we can list a lot of resources and stuff
Okay.
after your contact information. So
Gotcha.
I will make sure that I disseminate any information that you or anybody gives me
Mm-hmm.
to the community because that's
The
what I do.
the final thing I would like to
Yes.
mention, and you might
Yes,
talk
Dr.
about,
Hessler.
is of course
Sure.
there's post-stroke fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
For that, naps don't seem to help at all.
Okay.
Post-stroke fatigue is a strange thing. It's not related to the severity of the stroke
Mm-hmm. Nope.
or your
Nope.
gender or how old you are. Uh, so,
Oops.
but naps don't seem to help that.
Gotcha. Wait, where did
So
I
I'll
go?
shut up now.
No, no, you're good. I'm good. Where's my video? I kind of pressed something. Wait a minute.
One of the things
I
that
find the
you're
one.
looking, Catherine, one of the things that we've talked about, I do a roadmap series with William Lowe, and one of the things in neuro fatigue we talked about was paying attention to your body, to your
Yep.
cycles, to your circadian rhythms, to
Yes.
when your brain seems receptive, and to try
Yep.
and learn about your rhythms, and then you can maximize your recovery by exercising during the periods where you're fresh and taking the short naps or whatever that you need to do to refresh yourself.
Gotcha.
But you can, it's back to that focused approach. Science helps, but also paying attention to your body and learning what your body's telling you is for
Yep.
me was huge in my stroke recovery, and therefore I preach it to other people.
So we're kind of going to talk about brain breaks as well as in relation to sleep. Like what Dr. Hesser said, really post-stroke fatigue. Although Dr. Hesser, there has been studies found that post-stroke fatigue is more common with elderly female. as compared to, there has been statistics. Yep,
I didn't know
there
that.
has, yeah, there has, I can send it in too.
Okay.
I didn't know that either, but now that
Yep.
you've mentioned it, if I think about the posts in the groups, a lot of them,
Mhm.
not all of them, but a good chunk of them are,
Women.
50 to
Female.
70-year-old women.
Yep, yep.
I never
So
thought about it before. That's why I'm here. See, I could another.
and that's why I am here.
That's right. That's why we're all here. We're trying to build a community and share knowledge.
So that was one. I think I've read 2 or 3 like studies about that one, that they find out that women, like elderly, like greater than 50 years old, complain more of post-stroke fatigue, that it could be really related to the responsibilities at home, like mental fatigue with the things that you need to do around home, the responsibilities with their family, environmental factors, especially if the stroke survivor is a homemaker. So it kind of adds, yep, it kind of adds up to their post-stroke fatigue. So most probably for the gentlemen out there who are a stroke survivor gentlemen out there, if you're having like severe post-stroke fatigue, you have to really look into your mental health. Very, very important. How's your stress level? We're kind of dipping into different non-movement strategies right now, but I think it's very important that we try to connect everything. Stress, pain, sleep, and nutrition. Very, very, very important. I'm going to jump into the brain breaks, so at least I have a little bit more explanation regarding those short breaks. So we do have what we call micro-rest intervals and non-sleep deep rest protocol. So anybody familiar with those two? Non-sleep deep rest protocol and micro-rest.
Not really.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
That's why we're here.
So micro rest intervals, they are done usually in random when you're doing some learning. Usually it's, some people take 10 seconds. Usually it's just a few seconds, 10 seconds or 30 to 60-second breaks. You're not, after, let's say you do your arm exercises, you do your walking, you do your leg exercises. In 2 or 5 minutes to stop, take 10 seconds or 30 to 60 seconds, whichever is most comfortable for you, not more than 1 minute. It's a micro rest. And you're not going to do anything. You're not going to think of the walking. You're not going to think of the exercise, but you're not going to mentally rehearse the task you just did. You will just take a break. You'll just rest. You'll just take a break. The difference with the non-sleep deep, tongue twister, non-sleep deep rest protocol, there have been studies on humans published in the last 2 years that show that shallow naps or your non-sleep deep rest can enhance the rate and depth of your learning. So within an hour of completing a learning bout, let's say, again, you did your walking, you did your PT, you did your OT. Within an hour of finishing that one, do a short non-sleep deep rest protocol. It can include 20 minutes of mindfulness, 20-minute nap, 20-minute of just listening to music, just 20 minutes. So this is different from your micro rest intervals that you try to incorporate short bouts of rest randomly when you do your exercises. Wait.
It sounds a lot like sort of what I did with the 50 on, 10 off.
Yes.
If
Yes,
only I'd
yes,
known
yes.
about yoga breathing then. I've been doing yoga for about a year now,
Yep.
chair yoga, and I find it real valuable, the stretching and everything. Also the mindfulness and the breathing, when you can learn how to deep and breathe through your core, it's very restful. And actually, my daughter's a yoga teacher, and she thinks everything in life comes down to breathing. Personal opinion, but
Right.
You
You've
don't
been
breathe,
doing,
you don't live.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I knew there's that, but I meant
Exactly.
the
So
most
again,
important thing you can do is focus on your breathing.
you have to focus on your breathing. I wanted to do breathing also, but alertness, focus, but that's going to be a whole, I'm opening a can of worms if you try to do that one, and we'll be talking the whole day.
Well, you're
We'll
welcome
be
back.
talking. We'll do that. We'll schedule that again. I'll be happy to. So the studies behind those micro rests and those non-sleep deep rests, they say are comparable to deep sleep. So there are areas, the areas of the brain that are involved in learning and memory engage in the same patterns of neural activity that occur during the actual activity of reading, musical practice, skill training, but it's 10 times faster. So meaning you get 10 times neural repetitions completed during that pause. So we know about the science behind repetition. We know that already. But we always forget that we need to take those short breaks just to let our brains really integrate and synthesize all those learning. And again, science has said it, it's 10 times, it's 10 times the neural repetitions. So really, you have to rest, you have to take breaks. Again, and it's better to do it randomly so your brain doesn't get used to, okay, I'm going to do my micro rest in 2 minutes. It's like when you're taking pain medications and you've been taking it every day and you're getting used to that certain dose. Same with the micro rest. Try to surprise your brain that you do your micro rest every 2, every 5. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really have a set interval, but it's very important that you do it.
I have a question that
Sure.
may be a can of worms, and we can close.
I'm writing it all down.
Back on it. But one of the things that Dr. Hetzler made the community aware of was something called mass practice. The
Yep.
concept that when you gang together a bunch of work, your brain learns better actually through a larger block rather than a number of smaller blocks. So how would you, I guess you could integrate this break method into a couple hour block of mass practice or
Mass practice. So I do believe in Dr. Hester because again, we know that neurons that fire together, they wire together. So that's the whole concept of mass practice. It means that the more you run a neural circuit in your brain, the stronger the circuit becomes. So I'm 100% with mass practice. The difference with mass practice with just the micro-rest intervals, you just take a break. It's a small 10-second break. You won't even notice it.
okay,
It's
so
just...
they're not incompatible.
No,
Nope,
not at all.
Nope, not at all, not at all.
That's what I suspected, but sometimes I ask the question so that everybody else out there who's thinking, well, what about, anyway, great.
No, not at all. It's a good complement to mass practice because it helps your brain synthesize all that learning. It's again, you have to let your non-movement strategies work for you as well.
You also should work with your movement strategies, I would assume.
It's a good complement to the things that we're talking about today. They're very, very good complements with your repetition, your exercises, your positioning. But again, these are things that we usually forget. Yes.
Vicky has a question, I think.
Yes.
I do. I'm
Ms.
kind of
Vicky.
confused. How often during the day do you do this? Is it like just when you're exercising or is it 24/7?
No.
Just when you're exercising.
Yep. So then I'm gonna go back to my cheat sheet here. So your non-sleep deep rest and your micro rest intervals, you do them when you do your exercises or any type of learning that you're doing. It doesn't matter if just exercise or walking or you're learning, you're going back to how you're going to cook again. Just give yourself a few seconds. Just take a break. When you're just reading or watching TV or just, relaxing, technically you're resting already. So you don't have to do your naps.
You get a break.
Break. You don't need a break from your break.
Vicky, I don't know if you know my YouTube channel, but if you want to learn more about mass practice, you can go back to Dr. Hetzler's Stroke Buddies 20 on neuroplasticity. If you send me a message, I will send you a link to it. It's
I have run into some of your stuff.
well, just go to the top or go to the playlist that says Stroke Buddies Tuesday meetings and go on down to number 20, neuroplasticity. It not only has mass practice in there, but a lot about how your brain works, and it's very valuable. And it has crossed 1,000 views, Dr. Hetzler.
Wow,
So
that's a lot of views.
back to Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let me see my cheat sheet again here. So I would highly recommend like talking to either, I'm going back to just general sleep now. I would recommend talking to a sleep specialist if you feel that you have like weird sleep routine, like you're sleeping too much and it's been too long. Let's say it's been 6 months and you've been sleeping for too long, more than 9-10 hours. You still have daytime sleepiness because again, it's a good indicator that still something is going on in your body and you want that diagnosed. When we still have occupational therapy, OT can help you with sleep hygiene. It's basically what to do and not to do before you go to bed. Typically, we would recommend you to prevent light and noise. If it's hard for you to do that because of your environment, wear an eye mask or wear earplugs, just so you can try to zone yourself in and get yourself ready to bed. There have been studies. I'm not going to go to medications because I'm not really I'm not really the type of person, I can't really prescribe any medication, Dr. Hetzler.
Well,
But-
I don't prescribe medications either. I'm a doctor that doesn't help anybody.
Goodness.
But
So
in
so we're
general,
not gonna
no, in general, you should really not be taking medications to help you sleep.
Yep, you're right. Yep, nope.
And a lot of them
Again,
have problems like, well, you don't want to take something like antihistamines.
yeah,
Oh,
yep.
Now, I don't-
Melatonin is not good either, unfortunately.
you want to
Yeah.
avoid taking medications to help
Mm-hmm.
sleep if possible.
Yep.
No
Yep.
chugging the NyQuil, huh?
Nope.
No,
No, no, no.
no NyQuil and no alcohol.
What?
Yeah,
So
what did the alcoholic schizophrenic say to his doctor?
what?
I don't know if I'd rather have a frontal lobotomy or a bottle in front of me.
That's good.
Oh, Dr. Hester. Okay, let's go back. So we're not gonna do medications. I'm not really the type of therapist that would like to, tell my patient, oh, you can't sleep, drink this. Oh, did your doctor prescribe your sleep medications? Take that. Because I don't know. I'm same with Dr. Hester. But those supplements, those medications, they just mask the real problem going on. And then it kind of messes up how your body is how your body's going to start or initiate your sleep. Really, if you take those supplements, they're not really helping at all.
No, they are not. And some of them
They're not.
contribute to insomnia, and
Mhm.
others help promote Alzheimer's disease.
Yes, sir.
So
Yep.
be very careful about.
Very, very careful about that one.
Yeah.
I do have other clients, and then there's a few research supporting acupuncture for sleep, aromatherapy and white noise. When done together, really tries to help promote sleep. I would recommend see like a clinical aromatherapist, not just buy anything from the drugstore and sniff it. And then I know this is a very tricky thing for other people too, but medical cannabis. You have to be monitored by a CBD specialist, especially if you're taking blood thinners, because there is a big probability of interaction with new medications. Again, I'm just saying these things because I came across it with the research I've been doing. I'm going to hold off nighttime urination and because that's going to be again a whole can of worms, and then problems with breathing while you're sleeping, sleep apnea. I'm gonna reserve that for next time because I think that's a totally different. It is connected with sleep, but it's just a can of worms right now.
Well, that would be an interesting subject to talk about because a
Exactly.
lot of times
Mhm.
they question whether or not we might have sleep apnea, like they
Yeah.
did with me. And then I went and had different studies, and
Mhm.
you and I could talk about that a good bit.
Forever.
Well, no, because I actually have some personal experience with that, and it would be good to share that with stroke survivors because we tend to believe what the doctors say, and in my case,
Mhm.
I basically don't have sleep apnea.
Okay.
Well,
Yep.
did you spend the night in a sleep lab? But
Yep.
4 times.
Oh goodness.
and they
Yep.
said in the
No.
lab you did not have apnea episodes.
First time I had 22, and the second time I had 5, and they don't treat you below 5. And both the CPAP and the BiPAP basically gave me 40 events per hour of central sleep apnea. I finally got to I found a neurologist who was a DO neurologist, female, because I like females because they listen better. I like
Yep.
neuro, and I like the DO approach, and she was everything all wrapped in one. Sleep specialist. Most, about 80%
DLs.
are
Yep.
pulmonologists, some internal medicine, and only about 5 or 10% are neurologists. So she basically said, we're pumping you so full of air that your brain is turning off your breathing. It has nothing to do with obstruction.
It's too much. Yep. It's too much air.
The interesting thing was that had been, because I had a terrible pulmonologist doctor, I'd been working with my respiratory therapist, the person that delivered the equipment and such. And she said, well, that's interesting because I have 3 other clients who are about your age and in the same situation. They had obstructive, minor obstructive, and now they have major central. And she looked them all up without any HIPAA violation. And you know what she told me? All 3 of them had had strokes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So there's got to be something there. I don't quite know what it is. I'm sorry, Catherine. I shouldn't have derailed this.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, you have to be careful with sleep apnea. I do have sleep apnea, and I've got a CPAP machine. I have 400 episodes of apnea a night, so
Oh,
Whoa,
wow. That's a lot, Doctor.
I
that is a
need a
lot.
CPAP machine.
That is a lot. Yeah.
I'm, but here in Green Bay, well, I'm not in Green Bay, I'm in Appleton, but Reggie White was a Green Bay Packer football player, and he died of sleep apnea. So that
Sleep
makes
apnea.
the area quite aware of it.
Mhm.
But anyway, sleep apnea should be taken seriously
Yes.
Yep.
because,
Yep. Definitely.
so like I say, I've got many, many, many episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So I wear a CPAP every night. But a small number of apnea episodes, like 5 to 20, is normal. So you don't need a CPAP for that.
Yep.
You get into the hundreds that you do. I'll shut up.
Yep. No, that's very, very good information, Dr. Hetzer. But really, if you're having sleep problems and you feel like you have sleep apnea, you really have to get yourself checked. Because if you're not oxygenating your brain well when you sleep, because when we're asleep, we don't have as much, of course, we're asleep, we don't have as much voluntary breathing as compared to when we're awake. Because when we're awake, when we notice that we're kind of hard of breathing, we take that extra breath, we do that deep breathing. But when we are asleep, we don't really have that voluntary control of breathing. So we're not really helping our body get that oxygen in better. So if you feel like you have sleep apnea, if you have, you have a problem breathing when you're asleep, or somebody in your family tells you that you sound weird when you sleep, just go and have yourself checked out. Really, very, very. Yes, Dr.
Snoring is
Hester.
an indication of sleep apnea. So if you or your
I know.
partner snores a lot, should probably be tested by a pulmonologist.
Yep, you still have to. Yep, you still have to. Snoring is not really like normal, like your musculature is just very relaxed, but have yourself checked out.
And alcohol increases the frequency of apnea episodes. So
Yep.
if someone has apnea and they have a beer before going to bed, their apnea is going to be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So you've
Yep.
got to be very, very careful about
Very
that.
careful. Exactly. Wait, let me just also put the thoughts that Dr. Hesser told me so I can write it down in my notes. Everybody's
Sorry, we're
learning
messing
here.
you up so much.
Anyway, okay, so now let's move on to nutrition. So I have been reading a lot of questions in the Stroke Buddies community about taking coffee and alcohol. Right? I think I've been seeing a lot of comments. Is it safe for me to drink coffee? Is it safe for me to drink alcohol? If you are on blood thinners, it is very, very tricky because both of this really, they're kind of anticoagulants. So if you're taking blood thinners, it's working against your blood thinners. If you're not, like a glass, 4 to 6 ounces a day of alcohol, a cup of coffee is fine. That's what I've been reading. You can jump in, Dr. Hester, but that's what my research and some of the doctors that have been telling my patients, a cup a day is fine. It's not really going to hurt you.
Well, that's generally true unless you have other conditions.
Yes.
For example, if you have atrial fibrillation,
Mm-hmm.
you should not have caffeine or chocolate.
Yep. So this is a case by.
Chocolate has caffeine,
Caffeine. Yep.
theobromine in it.
Okay.
Mhm.
You should not have chocolate and you should not have caffeine.
I have AFib. I quit caffeine after my
Okay,
stroke.
coffee.
No
It made,
chocolate.
it made me feel like I had 3 glasses of iced tea one day. It made me feel like I was having another stroke. Haven't had any
Nope.
since.
No.
But I
So
do
this is a
enjoy,
case by case basis. Yep.
Yeah.
I do enjoy a couple of squares of dark chocolate
No, you
occasionally.
shouldn't have that either. And
Oh, joy.
tea
Now,
has caffeine and theophylline in it. So you should not have tea or coffee
Caffeine.
or chocolate.
Anything
I
with
drink
caffeine.
herbal tea.
Yep. Like
It should be
The
decaffeinated, but tea also has theophylline in it, which acts in some ways like caffeine.
yep.
So be careful.
You have to be careful. Yep. You have to be careful.
So was it yes or no to decaf coffee?
Decaf is fine. There's no caffeine in it, but it's a little bit of caffeine. I think 1 to 2% of caffeine. So technically it started caffeinated and then they had a process on the beans to decaffeinate it. So there's decaffeinated really is not 100% no caffeine, but there's a little bit in it.
Okay.
So this is again something that you would like to look into comparing it with the medications that you're taking. Because again, we don't want your medications not metabolizing well in your body because you're taking something that you're not supposed to.
Or that's working against them, yeah.
And then
It apparently has a bunch of other good things in it. So, because I've read about that, and I've thought about drinking decaf. I'm actually sensitive enough that if it gets around 90, decaf is somewhere between 90 and 98% caffeine free. When it
caffeine
gets
free.
down near 90, I can tell
You can feel it already.
Hmm.
And then, okay, so
Hey,
there,
Michelle.
yes. Oh, hello.
Michelle joined us. She had a telehealth conference, and welcome, Michelle. We're just talking about sleep and different things like alcohol and caffeine.
Yep, we're jumping into nutrition now.
Okay.
So all of us know why proper nutrition is important. So it promotes better sleep, improves your energy and functional activity tolerance. It improves overall brain health and function. It strengthens immunity, manages your pain, and improves your motivation. There has been, I don't know, has anybody heard of Dr. David Perlmutter?
The what?
Dr. David
Perlmutter.
Perlmutter. Yeah, Perlmutter. Anybody heard about him?
I think I've heard him, but I can't remember. That was a while ago.
Oh, so he has a lot of research and a lot of books regarding gut health. I'm gonna send the resources again regarding this one, but he mainly talked about the importance of our gut being the second brain of our body. So let's say, oh, I jumped. So they say that you have a bad gut, it leads to your inflammation. Inflammation causes your obesity, exacerbation of your pain, bowel disease, poor immune system. He talks about taking a lot of omega-3s, fermented food, pre and probiotics, and polyphenol-rich foods like nuts, berries. That's why I'm jumping this one in because he said coffee, but I think it depends on your condition and your medications as well, like Dr. Hetzer said earlier.
Well, one of the things that, by the way, I'm trying to find somebody who with a neurological background that knows about the gut genome, because
Yeah.
there's a most definite connection. And what I'm trying to do, what I'd love to do, is find somebody who had that knowledge who'd also had a stroke, but that would be like a trifecta. I'll take 2 out
That's
of
a good
3.
guess.
But a lot of people out there don't know what you and I know, Catherine, and
Mhm.
Dr. Metzler and Michelle probably knows. And I'm not trying to insult anybody else who might know, but your gut genome's responsible for a lot of your things that go on in your brain, like the generation of serotonin. So, you know, if you pay attention to your gut genome, you might not have to take SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which basically recycle the serotonin you're making because you're not making enough. So if you can make more, that would be a big deal. So I'd love to find somebody. It's you know, I don't know quite know where. I'll probably Google it right after this meeting because that's the starting place. Love
Of
to
course,
find somebody who
we all love Google.
understands this connection.
Exactly. So that doctor, yeah, that doctor is very, very into gut health. I'm gonna send those resources to you, Ralph, after today.
Okay.
Yeah, not a problem.
Well,
Um,
we also, most of us believe that anything you can do towards, you know, a more plant-based diet and paying attention to the food you eat in addition to supplements and things that you
Exactly.
take and don't take, that's helpful too.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people got into their strokes due to bad habits. Not all of us like to admit why we have our strokes, but you know there are a lot of people out there that weren't eating right, and that contributes
Exactly.
to diabetes, high cholesterol, a number of other things that can cause stroke issues. So,
Yeah, and by the way, you
Yes.
talked about supplements before. You have to be very, very careful eating supplements. Those that you buy at the grocery store or pharmacy or whatever, because
They're
supplements
not made
are
equal.
not regulated by the FDA. They
right,
do not have to be proven safe or effective. The
right.
FDA
The other thing, go ahead. Sorry.
if people start dying or having serious consequences. But for a supplement, a vitamin or a supplement is marketed, it does not have to be shown to be safe or effective. And they can't make broad, unsubstantiated claims. Like they can't say it cures cancer or will
Yeah,
heal a stroke. They can just make vague statements like
it may help.
or something like that. Be very careful with supplements.
So does that mean be careful of the brand or be careful of the drug?
Be careful of the types. I mean, this is going to be personal opinion. I'll let Dr. Hetzler say what he thinks and Catherine say what she thinks. I don't see a whole lot of harm in taking a basic multivitamin, C, a B complex, things like that. I think where you have to be careful, and Catherine mentioned omega-3s, they're great. I eat a lot of fish to get them naturally, but
You don't
omega
have to supplement.
You have to be careful if you're on blood thinners because omega-3 and turmeric and fish oil and things are natural blood thinners, so you can end up with, I guess, too thin of a blood if you take them. So to answer your question, I think it's the more the oddball. For me, it's more the oddball stuff because I don't see any harm in taking like a multi, a C, and a B complex. In fact, my neurologist said, you're not taking, when I gave him a list, he said, you're not taking the most important vitamin there is, and that's a B complex. And a lot of people take way too much B12, in my opinion. And I see Dr. Hetzler's was mouth moving, and I think I saw Michelle with her hand up. So either
Well,
one of you.
Well, some things are very helpful. Vitamin C, for example, acidifies your urine and helps prevent urinary tract infections. And that's good.
Right.
And you pee it out anyway.
Because for some reason, stroke survivors seem to have more UTIs than the normal population. I don't know the facts, but that's just an observation in the groups. And cranberry juice works pretty well too.
Yes.
And Michelle, did you have something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you said be careful of these supplements. Now, is there something that we can look for that makes something better than another when we are shopping for them?
If it has a USP
Right.
seal on it,
Okay.
that's a sign that it's better. I think Consumer Reports has a lab that tests supplements, and you could check them for the supplement and the manufacturer
Okay.
because they come in varying quality and purity. And
Well, and Nature Made, which is really
law,
good.
the federal law, they don't have to be tested.
Right. Yep.
Or
They don't have to be
quality.
regulated.
I
or
knew that part.
efficacy.
Yeah.
So you do have to be very, very careful.
Nature Made comes on television and say they were the first one to be USP listed. They're also sold at Costco. So, I mean, that's a reasonable solution. I'm not here to promote anybody. I've got 2 or 3 of theirs just because I go to Costco. They're cheap enough. They got the USP thing, and I don't see any harm. Like I said, I take a multi, a C, a B complex, magnesium, and D. D is most people don't get enough D, particularly stroke survivors who don't get
Yes.
outside.
You don't get it.
I agree. We
Went Seattle.
buy Nature Made also, and I take an extra vitamin D every day.
Yeah, I take
Very useful.
4 of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
you have to be
wow.
careful.
My doctor did a
Reckon-
blood scan, and she said, yes, you need to get up to this number. So I have to take 4. Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
My doctor told me 95% of all Americans are vitamin D deficient. I
Yep.
don't test it, but I take one just to be sure. Another thing I read recently is that sunshine is good for brain healing.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Getting
That is
outside,
true.
fresh air, that totally makes sense.
As a nature photographer, I would have to say that, you know, anytime you can take a walk in the woods, see a butterfly, chase a bird, whatever, that's good for your brain. I don't quite know how to quantify it, but I know the feeling that it gives me, and I was posting that picture of the day thing in Stroke Buddies for a while, and you know, people just love that because maybe they were getting that same kind of an effect.
Okay. You want to proceed?
Yeah, sure.
See, we're opening cans of worms.
Well, this is great.
Worms here.
This is great. This is
It is,
different.
yeah.
This is more interactive than most
Exactly.
meetings we've had. I had no idea it was going to go this way. We're not trying to be rude to you. I think it's great
No,
that
not
we're-
at all. I love it.
that we're interacting because it means you and I get to talk less.
Exactly. So going back, I'm gonna jump with the nutrition thing. So Michelle, your doctor said you needed to take this because you're lacking it. So that's why they're called supplements. We don't ask the group, what are you taking? What's good for you? But you have to really go back to your blood work if your body really needs it, because you can over supplement. A lot of people ask, what's good for my brain? And then a lot of people in the group, I would notice, they would chime in, oh, I'm taking B, I'm taking D, I'm taking C. And just list all the alphabets of supplements. You're going to see it under all the comments. But again, that's why it's called a supplement. It's something your body is lacking. So like, you need your vitamin C if you're not getting enough of it. But like for omega-3s, like what Ralph said, if you're eating a lot of fish, nuts, or yogurt, then why do you need to supplement with your omega-3 or omega-3s? You don't really need that. So again, supplement. That's the key word there, supplement.
We like to, whenever somebody gets into medical stuff, you'll see Michelle, I'm sure, does this in her group. I'll come along and say, we're good for anecdotal information, but I actually write, don't believe anybody in this group, including me, talk to your doctor. And I say, including me. Well, I have a lot of people who ask me like what supplements I take. Like they ask me a lot of things because I got better. So
Yep.
there's a
You're a
natural
good testament.
tendency to say, well, whatever he did, if I do that, maybe I'll get better. So I've had people
Exactly.
ask me all kinds of questions about what I do. Right, Winnie?
Yeah.
Right.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Then you have to really take, so we're moving past the supplements now. You have to take into consideration how much, we know this already, how much sugar and carbohydrates you're taking. Because there are a lot of people, even though you're not diabetic, but you have that, you're very sensitive to sugar or you're very sensitive to gluten. And you would know that. For me, I noticed that the minute I eat bread, my eyes suddenly start drooping, my energy starts going down, but I'm not diabetic. I don't have a gluten, I'm not supposed to be gluten-free, but it's affecting your gut microbiome, like what we talked about earlier. And it's really affecting how going back to your sleep, going back to your motivation to do things. So even though you're not diabetic, you really have to watch out with how much sugar and carbohydrates you're taking in a day. And then water. How well are you hydrating yourselves? Very,
Well, let me tip mine upside down. I do it in every meeting.
you have to. And then how do you know how much is enough? So if you don't have any fluid restrictions, usually people who have renal problems, kidney problems, they're usually limited to, I do believe, like 1,300 to 1,400 per day.
Milliliters?
Yep, I'm not really sure. Again, it depends on what their doctor tell them, but usually when I see people who do dialysis, they have that certain fluid restrictions. And that includes ice, coffee, even water from watermelons are considered water. So a typical calculation for a standard amount would be like 0.5 to an ounce per weight in pounds. So let's say you are 200 pounds, you can drink 100 to 200 ounces of water. Again, our body is mainly water. Our brains are 80% water. So if you're not hydrating enough, people say I'm not a water drinker, but again, your brains, they're 80% water. If you're not hydrating well, you're not really pushing that oxygen in your brain. It's like your brain is a plant. If you don't water it, it's not going to get better.
Well, I can tell you 5 years ago, I didn't drink any water, and I had to train myself to drink water. And now that I have, I don't want anything else but water. And I posted this recently, and a friend in our community, Leslie Hadley, who's a yoga teacher who had a stroke, she said the same thing. My daughter, who didn't have a stroke, said she inherited it from me. I'm never thirsty. So you can train yourself to drink water. It took me a while, and yeah, they'll tell you.
Have to.
they'll tell you 64 ounces. It's like kind of like telling you that you only get better for 6 months or a year. It's kind of old thinking. At least
Mm-hmm.
half an ounce per body weight. So 64 is
Yep.
great if you weigh 128. But if you weigh 228, you need
That's not enough.
you need 120. I err on I weigh in the 170s, so I make sure I drink 100 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
96.
Yep.
Six
Yep.
six of these
So
16-ounce glasses of
tall cups there. So if all else fails, standard is 2 liters per day. So at least if you have like, I have this big one, I try to drink. Yeah, this is a lot. This is 64 already. I try to drink like 3 to 4. Depends, of course, if you're moving around. You have to consider the temperature around you. If it's hot, it's sunny, especially if you like to go outdoors, you have to really hydrate. If you're doing a lot of exercises, a lot of physical activity, you're just sweating the water out, so you just have to drink and replace it.
or if you live in New Mexico, or if you visit Costa Rica, like I did.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I drank like crazy, and
Yeah.
no matter how much I drank, I don't think it was enough.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna pee it out anyway.
It was 20% humidity. You know, it's leaving your body, whether you see it or not, when it's
Exactly.
dry.
Exactly.
I have a catch-22 in that my ureters are hooked up to my
There.
colon. And so the more I drink, the more difficult it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important that I drink the water to make
Mhm.
sure that no problems arise either. So it's really a fine line.
It's a catch, yes. Did your doctor say what your limit is with your fluid intake?
You know, this all happened when I was a kid, and I just know that my doctor
Oh.
then said, always drink. I don't care what it is, but always
Mhm.
drink.
Okay.
So I just
Gotcha.
tried to always do that. But
Just
then he
pace it
says,
out. Yep.
you'll never be able to go to a kegger. You won't be able to stand in lines a long time, you know?
That's a
So I just
problem.
kind of had to adjust.
Yeah,
It's not what you want to hear as a teen.
all of us old guys feel your pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Funny.
I have a friend who pees every 5 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank God.
Oh goodness. Oh,
Actually, you
goodness.
know, I'm an older guy, and all older guys have issues with this, and I found that actually, you know, so I went through the whole thing. You know, well, if I drink more, then I'm going to have to pee more, and I'm having issues with that. So, but that's backwards because it's kind of like exercising. What I found was this: I built up to 96 ounces of water every day. That
Mhm.
I peed less times. I pee bigger. I pee more and less times when I hydrate, and when I don't, I tend to pee smaller amounts and actually more frequent. And
Mhm.
I know this to be a fact because I had to have a TERP operation, and they had me pee in a urinal and write it down for 4 months. So I mean, I have the
Oh.
science on a spreadsheet if you want to see it. So.
No, I don't need to see it.
Yeah,
We're good. We're good. We're
What
good.
you
We're
said,
good.
Ralph,
just be aware that maybe you shouldn't be afraid of drinking more because I found it actually helps my urinary tract.
well,
Mhm.
that's true. I mean, I'm an older man like you are, Ralph. But
Right.
true that the more I drink, the more I pee. But it's also true that if you're dehydrated, you pee more.
Mhm.
It's ironic, but
Got it.
if you drink too much, you pee more. If you drink too little, you pee more.
Mhm.
You have to drink the right amount, and that'll vary
Exactly.
with your body weight and so on.
Yeah.
But
Start with your body weight.
yeah.
Start with your
So
body weight.
if anybody, half your body weight is more than enough. So anybody who has any issues with this should not do, the whole body weight. If you weigh, 200 pounds, 100 ounces should do it. If you have issues, don't drink 200. If you get to your 100, then you should be good.
Yep. At least if it's just half your body weight, you're fine.
Right. Now,
At
I read
least,
it
at
sometime
least.
that 65% of people who have a stroke are dehydrated at the time they had a stroke.
Yes.
And I thought I was
Yep.
onto something. So I looked up how many people are dehydrated and said
Mm-hmm.
80% of Americans are chronically dehydrated. So
Yep.
I was thinking it'd be like, 20 or 30. Then I would say, hey, well, maybe dehydration is a risk factor for stroke, which it may be. I don't know, but it
It is.
wasn't definitive by the percentages. It was actually worse among all Americans than the
Guys,
statistics I
my
saw
name
for
is
stroke.
Sophia. Hi.
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 I thought I was gonna jump in for a second.
Go right ahead.
I do love water. When I was in the hospital after the stroke, I couldn't drink thin liquids, so I couldn't drink
Oh.
water. And when I heard people saying they don't like water, I said, "How can you not love? I love water." I was
Mm-hmm.
so upset I couldn't drink
Mm-hmm.
thin liquids, so I had to take sips and drink on my left side,
Yeah.
and
Just so it,
that
okay.
was so hard. But I learned drinking water maybe 15 or more years ago.
Mm-hmm.
After my second daughter was born, instead of losing weight, I was gaining weight. So I did a South Beach diet. So
Mm-hmm.
you had to drink a lot of water. So I would put lemon inside my water bottle, and that kind of changed the taste of the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I learned how to drink water, and I love water.
Mm-hmm.
I drink a lot, but like you said, you go to the bathroom all the time. That's the problem.
I've often said if I had a waiter that would just keep bringing me iced lemon water, I'd drink it all the time. Unfortunately, there's no waiter.
One more thing I'll share with you guys.
Well,
Steve
but
was
that's-
very good on that.
That's
But
also
before, obviously, I gained a little weight since I came from the rehab, since I
Mm-hmm.
was discharged, and because I was indulging myself a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, but I was like, oh, I got it. But I stopped. So now for breakfast, I tried to make this smoothie made of fresh spinach, a
Mm.
half a cup of oats, and some peanut butter, 2
Good.
teaspoons of protein powder, and a little bit of almond milk and water.
okay.
It's
Okay.
really
That's
good.
good. Good. That's good. And you would notice if you have that kind of breakfast, it adds a little bit of pep in your step throughout the day as compared to having pancakes or muffins.
Yeah.
Because really, if you start with sugar and carbs in the morning, you're just setting yourself up to kind of
Yes.
for the rest of the day. Really. What for me, what I usually do when I wake up, drink a glass of water. That's the first thing I do when I wake up, because you have to think you've been sleeping for what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. You are dehydrated.
Yes.
I do the
That's-
same thing.
Yep.
Very thirsty. So I have
Uh-oh. Everybody froze.
I've read that can help it is mindfulness meditation is
Mhm.
the only thing that will help relieve that, as I understand it.
And then we do have, I'm going to talk about those strategies in a little bit after we
Okay.
talk about, yeah, I do a couple with my clients as well. So since Ralph has just jumped in, so we're already talking about post-stroke pain and specifically about central sensitization. It's a chronic type of pain that usually patients feel like 6 months post any event. When you have this type of pain, we can talk about pain the whole day too. This is a very, very,
Yeah.
very tricky topic. The thing about pain is when you've been having it, when you're experiencing it severely, even for a short period of time, your brain is persistently in high state of activity. And even if the structural type of pain kind of subsides already, you already have that fear of moving. So any type of movement may cause you that pain, even if it's not really pain.
Right.
This is a very, I'm thinking of the best way I can try to explain this because this is very, very tricky. Usually when a stroke survivor has pain, your reception of pain is already altered as compared to a normal person pain. Let's say for me, I'm not a stroke survivor, but if somebody punches me, I would perceive that as pain. But for a stroke survivor, even the slightest touch, especially on that affected extremity, also already causes them that pain, because it's very sensitive already, and the
Yes.
the action potential is really heightened and high. The pain, because I don't want to make it sound that I don't believe when my clients have pain, because there is pain, but sometimes you already have a teeny pain, but your brain is already your brain is already on high alert. That's why even the slightest sensation or touch causes you to kind of
Yes,
be very.
sometimes my kids cannot understand. I said, don't touch me. My whole left side, if you touch me, I'm going crazy.
So with this kind of pain,
And now my elbow, my left arm, elbow, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce right. I hope yes. I have a lot of ossification, so there is a bone.
Ossification. Okay.
I can't really bend my elbow. I have to work on. I'm trying to like.
Yep, you have to. So usually, especially for chronic pain, since the fear of being touched on that part has been persistent and consistent, you have to really start to look back into yourself. We usually recommend a pain journal. Let's say you're experiencing this type of pain right now. Try to look back on what the weather is like that
And
day.
also, especially when you touch me with your cold hands. Oh my God.
Other people are good with cold. Other people are not good with. Yep. Other people are good with cold. Other people are good with hot, especially with that type of sensation. It varies. It
Yeah,
varies
it's very
really.
sensitive.
Wait a minute. Before we proceed, we've been sitting down for too long. Those of you who haven't stood up, can we try to stand up for a few seconds first? Because we've been at it for our. Let's stand up.
That's what I just did. That's where I went.
Stand up, stand up. We've been sitting down for too long. Stretch, thank you. Yep. For anybody who hasn't had water, I strongly recommend having a sip right now too. And then Ralph, are you on mute?
So
There you go.
we missed
There.
stand up.
Yep, we have to stand up. We've been sitting down for too long.
We
But
have a friend that advocates that we do it during the meetings, but she's not here today. So I was saying to Michelle, Polly missed it.
Yep. Well, it was in remembrance of Polly.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately I have another meeting coming up.
I'm sure.
I have another meeting coming up. Is it okay if we stop here at pain first and then we can continue?
Sure. No.
Right?
Okay. We can have you back, or I don't know what happened. Everybody froze, and I was still going.
We were still talking. You were the one who
Yeah.
disappeared.
I think it's
We
my.
didn't break stride.
I couldn't reconnect for a while. I got a warning from Spectrum that my address was out, and then they said it was restored. And when I went to connect, it told me I had no internet. So I went and turned off Wi-Fi, turned it back on, and then I was able to get back in. I did salvage the recording. I wish I didn't know you couldn't do that like later. So I did it now. I wish I'd come back in and record. So part that I missed, but it is what it is. It was a great discussion, and we appreciate you
Thank you.
coming, sharing
Thank
your
you.
knowledge with us, and
Definitely.
keep going. We
Yes, thank you so much for giving this talk.
Thank
Yes.
you, Dr. Hetzler.
thank you. We can
Thank you,
always
guys.
do more if you're willing. So
No, we have to. I have a complete list over here. I can't not say these.
It'll
Okay,
just be part 2.
I like her.
We have to have part 2.
I like her.
I was so excited to discuss negative neuroplasticity, but I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger.
That was definitely a cliffhanger. Now I'm gonna Google that. So
Yes.
I'll be doing that.
So I'm gonna leave that as a cliffhanger for now, and then Ralph and I can talk the best time we can try to do part 2, because I know Ralph told me that this was a very ambitious list, right? I gave him a pretty ambitious list. Really, we kind of cut out one or two topics already because it was a pretty long list. But I do believe these are all very important for us to talk about. And yeah, Ralph and I will talk for part 2, but I would really want to come back and say these things.
Okay, we'll get to your other meeting and know
Thank
that
you, yes.
all of us appreciate you sharing
I
your
know.
knowledge.
We had fun talking, that's why, and I'm a talker. Obviously, you know that already.
And I kind of lived up to my not talking, but not so much as usual.
Not so. No, we had a pretty good discussion, though. We had
Yeah,
a
we
very,
did.
very good discussion. Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, anybody, go ahead and go to your meeting. Anybody wants to stick around?
Thank you. I'm so sorry again. Yeah, you
Oh,
guys
no,
can
no,
talk
no,
some
no.
more. You're welcome. Just send me a
This is
message
good,
on
too.
Facebook or somewhere.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna leave now. Thank you.
right.
I'll talk to you guys soon.